Boris Becker had an insatiable desire for the high life, including several homes, fast cars, expensive art, and a taste for dining in some of the world's top restaurants. His lack of business skills and controversial personal life haven't helped matters either. He appears to have suffered from terrible luck, strained working relationships, and poor decisions. Apparently, he also lost $10 million he invested in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Becker almost lost his Maserati when his financial troubles came to light. They towed it away after he parked it illegally. Somehow, Boris scraped together the funds to get it back. Still, he had to move out of his $7 million London mansion and moved in with a friend. However, that friend is a multi-millionaire financier named Johan Elisik, who let Boris stay with him whenever the former tennis pro found himself in London. Becker wowed the world for 3 decades through the 70s, 80s, and 90s with his playing style on the tennis court. He dived headfirst for volleys and hit lethal serves that won him the nickname Boom Boom. The fans couldn't get enough of him, and the world was highly fortunate to have someone as talented as Boom Boom on the tennis court and on television. He won 3 Grand Slam singles titles, including 2 Australian Opens, 2 Wimbledon championships, and 1 U.S. Open. He also won 13 Masters Series titles, 3 year-end championships, and an Olympic doubles gold medal. The Association of Tennis Professionals, or the ATP, and the International Tennis Federation, or ITF, named him Player of the Year in 1989. Becker successfully defended his Wimbledon championship in 1986, defeating number 1 ranked Ivan Lendl in the final. However, Becker, who was ranked second in 1987, lost in the second round of Wimbledon to Peter Doohan, ranked 70th. Becker also competed in a match that became one of the longest Davis Cup matches in history. He ultimately defeated John McEnroe in a 6-hour and 22-minute match. Becker dominated on grass and carpet courts, but wasn't the best on clay. He never earned a top-level singles title on clay, though he came close in the 1995 Monte Carlo Open, almost beating Thomas Muster. Becker did win the men's doubles Olympic gold medal on clay in 1992 with Michael Stich, and his successes added to his already impressive tennis resume. In recent days, Becker's been in and out of the courtroom for his bankruptcy trial. During the trial, the court learned that Becker earned $50 million in prize money and endorsements alone during his career, roughly $130 million in today's cash. Becker also coached Novak Djokovic. He worked with BBC as a commentator and served as a brand ambassador for various companies. All of that's to say, Boris should have a steady stream of cash coming in. So, why did he default on a pair of loans and wind up in bankruptcy court? Furthermore, why did he feel the need to hide certain assets from his creditors? Despite his enormously successful career, the former number 1 has struggled financially since his retirement in 1999. Many people wonder if he had a good financial manager. You'd assume someone who reached the pinnacle of tennis would be a top real estate investor or own a successful sporting team. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned for Becker. Boris Becker was recently condemned under the Insolvency Act and will serve half of the maximum prison term. In April 2022, a London jury convicted Becker of 4 separate crimes while acquitting him of 20 other charges related to his 2017 bankruptcy. He faced a 7-year prison stint, but was only sentenced to serve 2 years and 6 months. However, this wasn't the first time Becker found himself in legal trouble. In 2002, Becker received a 2-year suspended sentence in Germany for tax evasion and attempted tax evasion totaling over $1.7 million. The 6-time Grand Slam champion disputed all of the allegations, claiming that he did everything he was supposed to do. He even put his wedding ring up as collateral. The prosecutor had a different opinion, saying Becker acted deliberately and dishonestly and just wanted to blame everybody but himself. Germans really love Boris Becker. Those who formerly admired his achievements had a hard time watching him fall so far from grace. It seemed like everything Becker tried outside of tennis only ended in failure. German fans watched as most of his business endeavors went up in flames. He tried being on TV and selling cars, but his lavish lifestyle kept getting in the way. Christian Schomers, who co-wrote Becker's 2013 memoir, Life is Not a Game, said Becker's extravagant spending was the only constant in his life. Schomers points to Boris's separation from his manager as the beginning of his downfall. His manager was fellow former tennis pro Ion Tiriac, a Romanian businessman known for his mustache and savvy money skills. Nicknamed the Brasnov Bulldozer, Ion acted as a father figure for Boris and helped keep him on the straight and narrow. Germans accepted that Boris was more popular in the UK than in his native country. They'd see him more often on celebrity TV shows, where he'd make a fool of himself. While he got paid to be on these shows, their degrading nature may not have been worth it. It was easy to see how humiliating these appearances were for Becker, but they may have been the only thing paying the bills. Boris's tax evasion narrative became public in the early 2000s, marking the beginning of his downfall. He lied on his tax forms to save $4.7 million and got caught red-handed. In December 1996, German courts launched a criminal probe into his tax affairs. Becker admitted to some inconsistencies at his 2002 trial. For years, he kept himself registered in Monaco, even though he lived in Munich. What's wrong with that? Well, Monaco is basically a tax-free haven. However, one must actually live in a tax haven to take advantage of it. Instead, Boris stayed in Germany. On October 24, 2002, the Munich District Court sentenced him to 2 years in prison for tax evasion. They ultimately suspended his sentence, which means he didn't have to serve any prison time. Still, he had to pay a $300,000 fine and donate $200,000 to charity. Becker struggled with gambling issues in the mid-2000s. However, he enjoyed gambling so much that he decided to do it as much as possible. He competed in the European Poker Tour and the World Poker Tour, and by 2013, he had earned more than $90,000 in poker winnings. Becker was a celebrity team member for the online poker platform PokerStars from November 2007 to mid-May 2013. Becker debuted as a poker amateur at an April 2008 tournament in Monte Carlo. He reached the World Poker Tour main event at the Bellagio in Las Vegas that same year, finishing in 40th place and earning over $40,000. In 2011, he finished 97th on the European Poker Tour in Barcelona, only winning $8,000. Becker went on to compete in many poker events for the next several years. He'd win a few $1,000s here and there, but never earned anything close to his tennis days. You also have to factor in how much he probably lost during his poker career, which was probably a lot. Becker struggled with his love life in the middle of all his success. After dating Karen Schultz from 1988 to 1991 and Cassandra Hepburn from 1991 to 1992, Boris fell in love with Barbara Feltus, whom he married on December 17, 1993. She was 8 months pregnant, and the two tied the knot at the registry office in his German hometown. However, things didn't last very long. Becker wanted a divorce in 2000, and in response, Barbara took their 2 kids to Florida and filed the papers herself. However, this voided their prenuptial agreement, entitling Barbara to over $2 million. So, what happened? Well, one day a woman came up to Barbara and claimed Becker was the father of her child. In his memoirs, Becker talks about how he confessed to a one-night stand with a waitress while Barbara was pregnant with their second kid. In January 2001, the pretrial hearing aired on German TV. To them, it was basically the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard of 2001. While Becker finally got his divorce, he had to pay Barbara $14 million in compensation. He also had to give her their Florida condo and full custody of their 2 kids. All things considered, this $14 million settlement was probably the beginning of Becker's financial ruin. Becker admitted to having an affair with a Russian waitress named Angela Ermakova after the media reported he was the father of her child. The two met at London's Nobu restaurant. Becker was out drinking after losing the 1999 Wimbledon championship to Pat Rafter. Apparently, Angela offered him a warm shoulder to cry on and plenty more. Years later, a DNA test confirmed that Boris was the father of her child. Becker couldn't stay out of financial trouble despite avoiding a $1.7 million tax evasion and sentence. Becker filed for bankruptcy when he failed to pay back a $4.6 million loan he'd taken out in 2013. Becker also owed another British businessman $1.6 million. Basically, Boris owed a lot of people a lot of money. Money he didn't have. However, instead of paying them back, Boris hid some of his assets so they couldn't be seized by the court. He didn't tell them about a $1 million property in Lehman, Germany, more than $66,000 worth of shares he had in a tech startup. Of the $50 million he made through his tennis career, Becker claims most of it went towards his divorce settlement with Barbara. And this time, instead of taking pity on him, the judge sent him to prison. After hearing Becker's case, Judge Deborah Taylor took his fall from grace into account. It's hard to ignore how Boris lost everything he had, including his family and reputation. Still, she didn't show any mercy. In Judge Taylor's eyes, Boris didn't show the slightest bit of remorse. Instead, he didn't accept his guilt and tried to distance himself from his own mistakes. Her gavel came down, sentencing Boris to 30 months in jail. Click to watch one of these next videos, and let us know in the comments section who you think is the greatest tennis player ever: Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, or Rafael Nadal.